Emily Grant sat by the window, watching the soft morning light spill across the quiet suburban street. The calm hum of the neighborhood wrapped around her like a familiar song. Yet deep inside, a faint whisper of unease stirred. Her husband, David, had seemed distant lately. Not harsh, not cold, just somewhere far away, even when he was sitting right beside her. For 12 years, they had built a steady, happy life together. But lately, she could feel the rhythm of it beginning to change. Emily worked as an art teacher at the local high school, while David, an architect admired for his creativity, poured his energy into designing beautiful spaces. They shared a cozy home, 2 loyal dogs, and a sense of routine that made everything feel safe. But now, that comforting rhythm seemed to be slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't quite understand why. One evening after dinner, as David loaded the dishwasher, Emily leaned quietly against the counter. "You've been quiet lately," she said, her voice soft but edged with concern. David paused, closed the dishwasher, and turned toward her. His blue eyes still held warmth, but they flickered with something uncertain. "I know," he said. "I've just had a lot on my mind." Emily smiled gently. "Do you want to talk about it?" He hesitated, then shook his head slightly. "Maybe later. It's nothing bad, I promise. Just something I've been thinking about." He kissed her forehead tenderly and went upstairs to his office, leaving her standing there, half comforted and half worried. That night, Emily tried to quiet her thoughts, but they kept circling the same question. What was he keeping from her? Days turned into weeks. David was still affectionate, still attentive, but there was a spark in his eyes, a private joy, or maybe an idea, something he wasn't ready to share. Then, one Sunday morning, while Emily was sorting laundry, her eyes caught a glimpse of a notebook, tucked halfway under the papers on his desk. She hesitated, torn between curiosity and respect. Trust meant giving him space, but after a long pause, she carefully opened it. Inside were sketches, not of buildings or blueprints, but of their home. Only in these drawings, the backyard had been completely transformed. There was a lush garden, winding paths, benches, and a gazebo, all drawn with remarkable detail and love. Handwritten notes filled the next few pages. Community garden project. Grant family dream. Emily blinked, a soft smile spreading across her face as warmth bloomed in her chest. This wasn't a secret of betrayal or distance. It was hope. That evening, when David returned from his run, Emily sat on the couch, the notebook resting gently in her lap. "I didn't mean to pry," she began quickly, her tone apologetic. "But I saw your drawings. They're beautiful." David froze mid-step, then let out a small sheepish laugh. "So, you found my secret fantasy," he admitted. She tilted her head, eyes curious. "A garden?" "Yeah," he said, chuckling softly. "It sounds silly, doesn't it? I've always dreamed of turning our backyard into a place where people could come together. A neighborhood garden. Kids, retirees, anyone who wants to connect. But it felt impossible. We're busy. It costs money. And I didn't want to drag you into something that might never happen." Emily set the notebook aside and took his hand, her smile steady and full of love. "David," she said gently, "if that's your dream, then I'm all in." He blinked, almost disbelieving. "Really?" "Absolutely," she replied. "Let's make it ours." And that was the moment their new story began. The following months became a whirlwind of sketches, plans, and learning. Emily reached out to local schools and gardening clubs, while David spoke with the city council about zoning and community spaces. Piece by piece, their shared dream began to take root. Not just as a backyard makeover, but as a mission to bring people together. One bright Saturday morning, they stood in the yard, marking plots with chalk. Emily laughed as their golden retriever, Max, trotted happily across their lines, leaving paw prints everywhere. "I think Max wants his own section," she teased. David grinned. "Then he can have the flower bed." Together, they planted their first seeds: tomatoes, lavender, and sunflowers. The soil clung to their hands. Their clothes were streaked with dirt, but they couldn't stop smiling. Soon, neighbors began to notice. Mrs. Thompson from next door donated her old gardening tools, while the kids down the street joined in to paint cheerful wooden signs. What began as a quiet dream was slowly becoming something bigger, something alive. The once empty yard soon burst into life. A vibrant patchwork of laughter, color, and energy. Flowers reached for the sun, children's voices floated through the air, and the scent of fresh soil filled every corner. In the evenings, Emily and David would sit beneath the half-built gazebo, sipping lemonade as the golden light of sunset washed over their creation. "You know," David said one quiet evening, his gaze fixed on the horizon, "I used to think my dream was just about building something beautiful." He paused, his voice softening. "But now I realize it's about sharing it. With you, with everyone." Emily leaned her head gently on his shoulder, smiling. "That's the best kind of dream," she whispered. As the garden flourished, so did their bond. They spent more time together, laughing, planning, creating side by side. The quiet distance that had once crept between them was gone, replaced by something alive and warm. Word of their project began to spread. A local newspaper ran a feature titled, "The Grants' Backyard Garden Brings Community Together." The article drew curious visitors, families eager to help, seniors who missed the feel of earth between their fingers, even teenagers searching for community service hours. By summer, their garden had transformed into a sanctuary. A wooden arch at the entrance proudly read, "The Grant Community Garden, Grown with Love." On opening day, Emily stood watching children dart between rows of flowers, their laughter mingling with the hum of bees and rustle of leaves. Beside her, David's eyes shone with quiet disbelief. "I can't believe all this started from a secret fantasy," he said, shaking his head with a smile. Emily looked up at him, her voice tender. "Sometimes," she said, "the best dreams are the ones we protect until the right person says yes." Months later, their efforts were recognized when the project received a local award for community contribution. They were even invited to speak at City Hall about how it all began. Emily, usually nervous about public speaking, stood confidently as David held her hand. "Every garden begins with a single seed," she told the audience, her voice steady and warm. "But the real growth happens when people believe in each other." Other. The word lingered in the air for a moment, before the room erupted in warm applause. Smiles surrounded them, and for the first time in months, Emily felt the full weight of joy settle softly in her heart. Later, as they drove home beneath the glow of city lights, David glanced over at her with a teasing grin. "So," he said, "I guess it's your turn now." "My turn?" she asked, laughing. "Yeah." To have a fantasy, Emily shook her head, her smile tender. "I think I already did. It was watching yours come true." For a while, they drove in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined, passing the soft, glowing lights of their little garden. The dream that had once been a secret sketch in a notebook and was now a living, breathing part of their world. That night, beneath the gentle shimmer of string lights, they sat together in the gazebo. The world was quiet. The air carried the scent of lavender, fresh soil, and something deeper, peace. David turned to her and whispered, "You know what I've learned?" She smiled. "What?" "That love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing," he said softly. "It's about saying yes to dreams, to growth, to each other." Emily's eyes glistened as she looked at him. "Then yes," she whispered, "always." And there, in that serene corner of their backyard, Surrounded by the life they had nurtured together, their love bloomed once more, stronger, simpler, and more beautiful than ever before.